Welcome back to another episode of Automate or Not. We have some exciting new topics to discuss today, and Yossi, you want to get us started?
Yeah, so today's topic is pack lists as a general idea. I'll give a little, what are we talking about? So pack list, any pack list, and actually it's also very specific in sometimes. So pack list, for example, for flying, pack list for before you're going to leaving the house, for example, if you want to like have dinner or you go to school. So this is the main idea of the episode today. You have any more?
Right, and we wanted to give just a small caveat because we love caveats. It's our favorite thing. And that is that we are aware that many of these Automate or Not questions have very similar pros and cons in the sense that the same reasons apply for why you would want to do it and why you wouldn't. But we still think that it's interesting to discuss because there are different angles and different examples for the same idea. So you still get something new and fresh even though there's a certain amount of repetition. So this is all to say that the pros and cons that we're going to give for the pack list are going to sound somewhat similar to maybe the ones we gave for the grocery list, and we're aware of that.
Yeah, and I would add that not the main, but what we care about, like those episodes, or this episode, and any other ideas, so it's more getting more into the examples.
Of the system
Of
itself.
the systems, yeah.
Right.
And not when, it's mostly like ideas, some ideas of when to use that system in general. Because when you think pack list, well, when do I use pack list? So we're going to go more in depth into when.
So what does systemizing packing look like?
So we're going to start with the most obvious one, I guess, is packing for a flight, for example. So you go for a vacation or something longer, which you need a lot of different details. There's a lot of products you have to go with you. So you need to calculate, and those, if you really try to keep the list in your head, you will destined to fail. So you have to have some list. So the better the list, which that's the automate part. So you just create a list and add more and more things to it until the point that you can rely only almost 100% on the list, solely on the list. So you know if you went according to the list, you checked every item, you know 100% you're cool.
Right.
So that's the automation of that part will be.
Right, and I think the idea is similar to shopping. Leaving your house and going out for longer periods of time is something that happens very regularly.
Yeah.
And the things you need for those trips are also very regular. So they don't really change that much. So you really end up packing the same things. Like, for instance, I'll give an example from my own situation. I go on meditation retreats, and I notice that every time I pack, I'm trying to think what I need, and it's the exact same things as last time. And I need to go through the whole process of figuring out what I need, and I forget something literally every single time.
Yeah.
And having a list would really mitigate all of that and take care of that whole thing. So
that's when we can start. You can add also, sometimes you can do, but that's like small details. Like, some people can say, oh, but summer and winter is not the same thing. So you can have two different lists, or you can add in one list all of them. So it doesn't matter. At least you have a list, something to follow through or along.
Right.
So kind of like that system. And from there on, we can go even to like smaller details. So before you go to school, if you like, you have everything you need before you go to school.
Right.
So that's another way you can automate going out. At least for a little period of time that you can have, okay, I go to school and you always forget something. So you write down everything you want and you go month according to that pack list, and eventually you will just get into your head.
Right. And I think I just want to add on the forgetting thing, that just to clarify it a little bit, there are certain products that you really basically never remember to pack when you're packing because they're kind of like weird things like bug spray or something, or like taking your glasses to the theater.
Yeah.
And somehow if you remember one time to put it in the list, it's those exact products where I think these lists are the best for. You're not going to forget to pack your pants, for instance. Like you could, hopefully not, exactly. But there are certain things that I find that if you don't have a list, like the chances of not bringing them are extremely high. So it really pays off in that sense.
And sometimes even those little things are like eventually end up being the most annoying ones
to not have.
Yeah,
right.
Even though it's nothing too crazy. It's not like you forgot your passport. Even that happens too. which even if you have that on the list, you will never forget that, for example. Right. But even things that are not as important, but they're really annoying when you don't have them. Battery, for example, could be a very annoying one.
Right, exactly.
And then
so let's talk about cons for a minute. For me, one con that really comes to mind, and it's kind of similar to something we spoke about with groceries, is that if you have a list and you're thinking of going somewhere, because you know you have the list, you're going to completely rely on the list. And if there's something extra you needed for that trip, there's a very good chance that you won't add it because you're so like with the list, like Rosh Bakir, as they say in Hebrew, that you don't actually think of any extra things. So if you follow the list one for one, you might not remember to bring like specific shoes for this place because they have a certain type of environment, whatever. So I think there's a danger in being too much with the list where you're relying too much on it. Yeah, but what are some cons that you can think of for systemizing this?
I can think of. I do have something to say about that con. So I think it will eventually, at least at first, you need to think about it more and then have the system. So having the system is just like to check that you have everything, but still think about it. So you can rely at least at first. When so you cannot 100% rely on the list.
You're conning my con. You're conning my con. Yeah.
But I think there is definitely some cons. One of them is that it's hard to, first of all, construct that list, which is usually the problem. It's just like takes a long time. And you always, even if you forgot something like a bug spray, let's say that bug spray example, you forgot that bug spray. And you need to literally, when you remember that, you're not going to remember that many times in your life the next time. So you need to go right away, or at least in like a short period of time, and add it to the list. Which you would think, oh, that's not that hard, but when you actually do it, sometimes you're just like being too lazy. It's just like, where does that list? You don't have the time to add it right away, and you just forget. So you need to be kind of like, not meticulous, but you need to like be at least mindful of adding things and be like active.
Right, it's the classic con that we give for all of these, which is it's your favorite con for sure.
It is.
It's that creating the system is hard and annoying.
And maintenance. Creating and maintenance, you can say that.
And I think another issue too, this is more of a details issue, and maybe we'll end with this, is that this system is particularly difficult to create because there can be small differences that you wouldn't be sure whether you should edit a list or create a new list. And there's always these kind of questions of like, if I'm going to a 3-day retreat and a 7-day retreat, do I have one list for both with different versions, or do I have two different lists? Or it can get complicated depending on how many days. Is it winter? Is it summer? It's very there's a lot of different things to look into. So,
but you definitely have you will definitely forget less things. But let's say I think I have quite a few pack lists.
Right.
for different situations.
Cases. So as usual, no surprises here. We are pro systemizing, and our cons are exactly the same as always. But thanks for tuning in, and we shall meet next time.
Thank you.